those two major heroes of mine, including Timothy Leary, but Carl Jung and Joseph Campbell, they're classical scholars. They speak these, like Joseph Campbell spoke 5 languages, including Sanskrit, all the, ancient Greek. So it's like this kind of encyclopedic, and classically trained too. It's like, so I was drawn. They were like the like big luminaries. I couldn't meet Carl Jung because he died in 1961, but Joseph Campbell was the next wave, and his his influence, even he was George Lucas was inspired by him. So all the Star Wars movies are completely mythically correct, why they're so compelling. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your mind, and all your soul. That's the Bhakti part. Right? Then love your neighbor as you love yourself. Right? So how much do you love yourself? How much do you know yourself? You can't love somebody until you know them, right? So same thing, you can't really love yourself till you know yourself. Like Apollo said, know yourself. And then, so Bhakti is a big part of my path.
Welcome to this new episode, and today we are in the beautiful village of Pai, and particularly in a very extraordinary house. We are in the abode of David, also called Hindu David.
Dave.
Dave, okay. How are you?
I'm very good. And I call my place the Mystery School Hot Springs.
Mystery School Hot Springs?
Mystery School Hot Springs, yeah.
Because we also have the blessing of the hot springs indeed coming into the house.
17 baths in different grottos, in villas on the property, and temples, 2 temples.
It's really a fascinating place. And Hindu Dave is an archetypal psychologist,
correct,
archetypal astrologist, someone very much interested in mysticism,
yes,
and just world religions. And he has a fascinating history of sort of researching and developing in this specific field, which is one that, of course, we love very much in Copenhagen.
yeah.
So first of all, I'd like to ask you, Dave, what is your journey in life?
Well, I'm 71 years old, and I've been living at this property for 20 years, and in Thailand for 22 years. I've been to India 22 times, but I'm an American. So I passed through many stages. And but the constant thread is, I would say, psychological depth, mystical depth, unveiling the esoteric and mystical core of all the high world religions, and then the synthesis. Like this, my place is like a celebration of all, like the Greek pantheon, Egyptian, Hindu, Buddhist, Christian. Like cherry picking the top, and these are the archetypes. The deities are the archetypes. They're part of the internal equipment of who we are as human beings. Those are the core ingredients, the core identities, and the different how we act that out through our lives and interests and personas we wear, and so I'm working with the core. Unlocking the map room, where the archetypes are in there. Then they take different forms in different cultures, the different gods, but the same core principles. And
So let's go back to your childhood. So you were born in the United States.
Born in Cleveland,
Cleveland.
Ohio, Independence, a place called Independence.
Very nice. And always interested in like learning about humans and the mind and also mystical aspects of
Well,
of
you know,
our
I
lives.
lived there from birth to 18. So I'm a baby boomer. I was born right after the war. My father he was at D-Day when he was 16. Normandy invasion, you know. So that generation and so we were the post-war. And then with that, you know, it's like in my teens and went through the entire cultural revolution. Like I was a major Beatle, like millions of others, but it was like, so all the revolutions and music and feminism, civil rights, psychedelic revolution,
The
all that.
counterculture, yeah.
Yeah. And Timothy Leary was a very close friend of mine. Who he was like, they called him the High Priest, or Commodore Leary. You know, he was like my second father, really. And he was a professor at Harvard from 1960 to 1963, and like the core architect of the whole psychedelic counterculture, hippie, Copenhagen lifestyle, all that, you know, that's like at the, and then San Francisco, I spent a lot of time out there in the hippie phase. So I was just of that age. And then I left when I was 18 and went to Florida, and there I went through, say, shamanic dismemberments, you know. It was a time of like psychological crisis, that like full ego death, and then coming back from that, you know, like complete severance from humanity. I didn't speak for like 2 years at one point during that time.
Wow.
I was in several psychiatric institutions, and then like he took everything I had, like Odysseus, right? Ulysses trying to come back, trying to come out of the depths, and then I moved to Colorado, Boulder, Colorado, which is like, that's like Copenhagen. It's like Mecca kind of too, you know. It's like Copenhagen's like Hawaii, but Boulder is like, wow, you know. I mean, so many schools there, so many, the largest Buddhist university. So I went into healing arts. Mm-hmm. I became I did the Boulder School of Massage, a famous school, 1,500-hour program, and then I moved to San Francisco, into an Osho commune, biggest place, not a commune, it was like the Osho Center right in San Francisco, and it was also postural integration, they called it, and that's still, he developed it at Pune 1. He was like, and so it's a body, it's like deep tissue body work while you're simultaneously working with the psyche, working with the emotional material and spontaneous memories that are coming out. And then I got licensed back in Boulder in Hakomi, body-centered psychology, and then my Jungian studies have been going on for 40 years. And it was during that context of that I met Joseph Campbell, and studied with him over 3.5 years. Spent had a lot of quality private time with him, even, you know. But like in that vein of Campbell is the direct lineage of Jung. Mm-hmm. He's like the next flame going down. It's like Tim Leary handing to Terence McKenna kind of thing, you know, like the next wave of the psychedelics so I was blessed to be with him. It was like, wow, you know, mostly in California, but also in Colorado. And then I moved over here when I was 50 years old.
You know, when you talk about this period of historical period of life, that is also, you know, also part of your own experience. Yeah. It's quite amazing because it seems so easy almost to meet these luminaries and these very enlightened teachers. It's not so easy these days, maybe. Is that right?
Well, I think so. I mean, it's like, for one thing, like those two major heroes of mine, including Timothy Leary, but Carl Jung and Joseph Campbell, they're classical scholars. They speak like Joseph Campbell spoke 5 languages, including Sanskrit, you know, all the, you know, ancient Greek. So it's like this kind of encyclopedic, and classically trained too. It's like, and and so I was drawn. They were like like big luminaries. I couldn't meet Carl Jung because he died in 1961, but Joseph Campbell was the next wave, and his like if his influence, even he was George Lucas was inspired by him. So all the Star Wars movies are completely mythically correct, why they're so compelling. Yeah, Lord of the Rings kind of thing, and that's all mythic material that's showing in, popular modernity, or all the Marvel, it's like the need for heroes, the need for the divine, for the extraordinary, and so, so this place too it's like a world full of gods and all the best of the pantheons, the best of the Hindu, Buddhist, Asia, Taoist, and then in the West, Egyptian, Greek, like all the mystical, like Crowley, Aleister Crowley. Also, I've studied him much, and he was with the Golden Dawn, the turn of the century. All the mystics, and disciplined people. These guys graduated from Oxford and stuff. A lot of them are famous. So it's like they were bringing a certain gravitas to the practices and things.
Okay.
And but anyway, that's kind of the waters I've been swimming with
from a very early age. So
I was like an astrologer, I think, from birth in a way. It was like in my yeah.
So there was you think there was a predisposition of sorts, some sort of karmic force that brought you into this, right? And can you tell us a little bit more about this crisis that you had when you actually ended up in a sort of psychiatric ward? What was the trigger of it?
Well, I had a lot of, like I said, my father was a World War II veteran. Many of those men came back completely traumatized.
Okay.
And there was a lot of violence. So I was exposed to a lot of violence in the home, and I healed it up to the end. He and I became intimate friends. There was no, it's like all that, but it was severe scars. And I believe it's destiny, like shamans. That's how historically how shamans come into existence, because they have a psychotic break, they have a psychological crisis. Yeah, like breaks the ego down. Yeah. Even this is just starting to rise. Like you're around 16 years old, and you're just starting to get the keys to the car. You're starting to be somebody with the friends you're hanging out, swallowed back into the, like Odysseus disappearing for 10 years, a long journey too, to give birth to a new self, a new ego, and it's like a lot of the traditional literature says, there's a lot of agony, it's really, it's touch and go too. There's no guarantee you're going to reemerge, it's like
for sure.
The real deal, and so, but that's when the crisis was ended, started when I was like 16, and it was dramatic too, because I was class president for like 3 years. I was honor roll student, and then I have this breakdown. Nobody at that time. This is like the, 60s, and people weren't, psychiatric hospitals and
lots of stigma and stuff.
All that stuff, and particularly at that time. Now there's like, there's more understanding more understanding, because there's more exposure over the years. And but it was like full circle coming out the other side. I came back to my hometown Cleveland, and that's where I finally came out from that depths of the unconscious, and got my paper signed by the doctors, and stuff. And then it was only like 2 years later I moved to Boulder. I was 25 years old, and I was like, wow, I was like, ground, everything's happening, anything you want to explore.
So Boulder was your element.
It was a major home, and Pi as well. Those two, I always had a sense of destiny too. Like I bought my home in Boulder. My home was like 3,000 meters above sea level. It was only 20 minutes from town. And here I bought this place in 2003. Saw Pi. I was here first time in 2002, and bought the property the next 9 months later. And so I've had and also I spent a lot of time in the Yucatan with the Mayan
Okay.
Yeah, the Mayan and lived there as well as part of that. It was always like the mythic, you know. It's like when I travel, it'll always be pilgrimage, going to Vrindavan, going to Varanasi, Bodh Gaya, go to Egypt, take my wife with me, you know, take her down to Amritapuri, where Amachi down in Kerala.
Yeah.
I have a little apartment down there, take her down there, expose her to all this. And then, you know, was bringing statues back from India and lingams. I shipped in like 108 lingams, you know, different sizes, are installed all over the property. And but, you know, the Bhakti part, like love of God, you know, it's like the Christ over there, the image of the avatar, Lord Jesus. He was being challenged one time by the authorities, you know,
Yeah.
the religious authorities, you know, who do you think you are? What are you doing, you know? And they asked him. This one rabbi said to him, the laws of Moses, the Mosaic laws and the laws of the prophets are many, and to make them all, to do them properly is challenging. So what do you say the law is to Jesus? And Jesus said, it's true that in the Mosaic laws are complex and many. He said, but I tell you, the law is one. Two parts. In the first, he says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your mind, and all your soul. That's the Bhakti part. Right? Then love your neighbor as you love yourself. Right? So how much do you love yourself? How much do you know yourself? You can't love somebody until you know them, right? So same thing. You can't really love yourself till you know yourself. Like Apollo said, know yourself. And then, so Bhakti is a big part of my path. And like you came to my kirtan. I've been doing those for 5 years here now.
Yeah.
Every week. Raja Yoga is the yoga of all the, like the kingly arts, like Vipassana, Zazen, all the Shunyata, the Buddhist Shunyatas, and it's the fire element, and um, and then Karma Yoga is the earth element, and that's about worshiping through your creations, through your effort, through your that you transform your consciousness. That every act that you do is a offering to the Lord, and then also that there's you work to cut any cords of attachment to the result of your creation, any of your work, which is not an easy thing to do. We're all we want to return, you know. So it's like giving up that attachment, and then Yani Yoga is the air element and the thinking function, and it's this deep inquiry into the sacred traditions and the scriptures and the great mythic epics and the Puranas and the words of the avatars, the words of the Buddha and the Dhammapada, the words of Krishna and the Bhagavad Gita, and Rama and the Ramayana, and Christ on the Sermon on the Mount, and then Bhakti is the water element. It's the feeling function. It's the yoga of the heart. And in the Bhagavad Puran, the huge tome about Vishnu, Narayana, he says that Bhakti Yoga is the most effective, most efficacious, the most the direct path. Nearly, it's like the A train in this age, this time we live, the Kali Yuga and the Aquarian age that's accelerating. And anyway, Bhakti is the tending to the inner ember of devotion. It's something larger than yourself, something deeper, something more, something that you evolve into, something that's guiding you. and and it's like that. Just briefly, it's like the that quintessential statement of Christ about the true Dharma, the true law. He said it's simple, really, simple, but not simple to say and not easy to do. And he says, I tell you in all truth and all earnestness, that the law is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your mind, and all your soul, and to love your neighbor as you love yourself. So right there, deeply psychological, as you love yourself. Unless you love yourself, you have trust and faith in yourself. You can't trust or love another. So it's just all. But the first part, love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your mind, all your soul. And I was talking to Luca about some of my favorite chants, and this, I'll just share this little one and then we'll start the practice. But this one kind of epitomizes the Bhakti spirit. And it's actually Catholic in its origin. It's from Spain. It's a mother's blessing to her child. And it goes, oh, my child, this is your mother's blessing. May you never forget God, not even for a moment, worshiping forever the Lord of the universe. So love of God, that's primary. Remembrance of the divine, reading, all the, like the Bhagavad Puran, the Ramayana, the Odyssey, the Iliad, all this epic sacred literature, and all the stories about God, and all the words that came out of the incarnations, the avatars' mouths. So out of the lips of Krishna comes the Bhagavad Gita, and out of, like that statement, Christ spoke that, in his very short 3-year mission. And then Rama, the Ramayana, the epic, and it's like, that's the Lord of the Rings right there. There it is. That's Star Wars right there. Ramayana, the light in the dark again. These are the eternal constants. So we're going through it, obviously. It's in the world. You see, that polarity and the two sides confronting each other, and the autocratic and dictatorial and is the lower 3 chakras. Those are called masuras. That's like the demonic titanic rate. The upper 3 chakras are the Davic, moving toward, and your destination is formlessness and union with God. This system here, the top that you can reach, solar plexus, the power center, how much power you have, power over people and control and force, and it's the Mars center, so then the heart is the key. That's the churning rod, like you see in Angkor Wat, the back part of the panel, the churning the ocean of milk.
Yeah.
That's like a core mythic image of Hinduism in the early Puranas, but you takes both. You have the lower chakras, upper chakras, but the heart is the key. Keeping centered in love, keeping centered in and then the churning creates immortality. The Amrita is where that comes out of, So
Sure.
Yeah. So that's how I view the world too. Everything that's going on now, and and through a bigger lens too, like transgenerational lens. Over, like, for instance, this cycle we're in right now started, China, Mao Zedong took over China in 1949.
Yeah.
A year later, Korean War breaks out. Armed by the Soviet Union, Stalin armed the North Koreans. Then Mao invaded and took over the whole of Korea.
Yeah.
Right, right there, they had the Westerners pinned together, push them out into the ocean. And then it was like, not to go into too much detail, but it was like a surprise amphibious attack, like a little D-Day thing, when they cut the country in half and cut the army off and all that. So 3 years of that confrontation with America, the West, Western NATO, UN, NATO ally, Western liberal democracies. Then Indochina War. America replaces France, and all the weaponry came from Russia. Came from so it's like this proxy. You don't fight face to face because that's a hot war and too dangerous. But you try to attack each other that way. Then the Afghani war that happened, where Russia invaded Afghanistan in the 80s, America's armed the Mujahideen, all these guys, including Osama bin Laden, trained him, to take down them, to destabilize them in the blowback. And now Ukraine, same players.
Proxy war again.
Yeah, but same players too. So we're talking, there's 70 years right there.
Cold War style, yeah.
Yeah, it's not finished. These things they don't work out overnight. It's like affects multiple, and that's indicative of this passing of the aeon.
Oh, okay.
It's like a bit, this has been going on for 250 years. And this is like we don't really get fully into Aquarius till like another 150 years from now. We're really in the constellation, and so this is like, and it's always, the last time this happened historically is when the Roman Empire collapsed.
Okay.
Om Namo Narayana.
Om Namo Narayana.
Om Namo Narayan.
Om Namo Narayan.
Thank you very much for this fascinating interview, and for sharing your knowledge around mysticism, psychology, and your very interesting life as well that you had so far.
Yeah, it's been an interesting ride.
Thank you.
And I enjoyed my time with you, and I really enjoyed our exploration and how you approach your interview art form here. So I enjoyed it.
Thank you very much, okay?
Okay, amigo.
Bye-bye.
Long live rock.